All right, guys. So I want to talk about Dark Souls 1 a little bit. I recently was looking at some videos other people made talking about some of the best weapons in the game. And I keep seeing some crazy takes about the game. And what I mean by that is I see people say the same things over and over and over again about this game and the way that the weapons work and which ones are good and which ones are bad. And I think a lot of people are missing the point about what makes a good weapon. So, one of the first things I want to mention, I did mention this in another one of my videos, but I want to bring it up here just before I get started, is that a new game playthrough of Dark Souls 1, I tend to beat the game, like defeat Gwyn, after defeating all bosses, at around level 70 to 90. So, what you can say with that is that no matter what starting class you pick, if you're spending all your souls, you're not dying very much or at all. So you're not actually losing too many souls, just to that. You're going to be around level 80 when you defeat Gwyn. And that level is actually lowest for me on a sorcery build, for example. So I did grab down here the Logan's Catalyst just to represent sorceries, and the Pyromancy Glove just to represent pyromancy. And the problem with these builds that makes them overrated is, yes, the damage for the stats you invest is very high, but there are significant consequences in your player level that make it harder. Also, you require a very large amount of game knowledge to use these. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what makes a good weapon, and I want to dispel a lot of confusion about the game. I think a lot of things are massively overrated by the general community, and a lot of the things are extremely underrated. So I just want to make this video to hopefully give some clarity on this. And for context, a lot of people don't know this. Two things about me. One is I've played this game, Dark Souls 1, for literally so long. It's been my favorite game of all time ever since I beat it for the first time. And that hasn't changed, and it's also remained an autistic special interest for me. So what that means is I am more interested in the deep, nitty-gritty numbers and details of this game than an allistic person would normally be. And what that means for you, the viewer, is that my knowledge is very deep on this game, unusually so. So I hope I can provide that knowledge and help make things a little bit more clear. So one of the things, let's just get started, first of all, with the whole point of this. I want to talk about things being overrated or underrated. So we'll just start off right away with pyromancy. And what I mean when I talk about pyromancy is attacking with pyromancy spells. I'm not referring to Power Within. And the reason I bring that up is if we're talking about Power Within as a spell, it's the best spell in the entire game. Power Within makes it so you take 1% of your maximum health in damage over 60 seconds. Or sorry, not exactly 60 seconds. The way it works is Power Within will kill you in a minute from full health. That's basically what it does, which is the downside, which is a very small downside because what it gives you in exchange is, I think it's around 400% increased stamina regen, and which is insane. That's the reason it's broken. And then also 40% increased damage from all sources. So if you want to just melt any boss you want, Power Within is the way to do that. It's just so you know, it's still worth investing in Vitality to have lots of health when you are using Power Within. You want your health to be an odd number for a specific little kind of cheese thing, but who cares? Basically, Power Within's broken, but we're not talking about Power Within today. I'm talking about using these as weapons, and I'm going to talk about how underrated or overrated each of these weapons here are, and these are some of the weapons that get talked about the most or the least. So some of these weapons in here, like my child, the man serpent greatsword right here. This thing is so good, and nobody talks about it, and it just makes me crazy. So I have to bring it up in one of these videos whenever I'm talking about something being underrated. So I'm gonna rate how good they are, but I'm gonna talk about how underrated or overrated each thing is. So here I'm putting the Pyromancy Flame as a tier option. So the thing about Pyromancy is extremely broken in PvP, and that gives it a misleading representation in PvE. So what am I talking about PvP, PvE? PvP is when you're fighting against other players online, and PvE is when you're just playing the game on your own. So the thing about Pyromancy doesn't cost significant level ups on your player character, and the way the matchmaking is done in online when you're playing against other players is it's based off of your level largely, and also your upgrade level of your items and equipment. So what that means is in stuff like duels and PvP, Pyromancy is really powerful because it gives you power without requiring you to level stats in it. And almost everyone has access to this, especially Dex players, because they get faster casting speed too. So it makes it crazy in PvP, but we're not talking about PvP. And this is what causes Pyromancy to get so misrepresented. Because in PvE, Pyromancy requires a very high amount of game knowledge to actually make an effective build with it. You have to know where to get the spells, what spells to get, how to manage your souls, and you also have to invest quite a lot into attunement, as well as upgrading your Pyromancy Flame. Just upgrading the Pyromancy Flame alone is going to cost you, like, end game, you're looking at like 10 to 15 levels worth of stats. And that can be quite significant, especially if you're taking those stats out of your vitality or endurance, especially. So, whereas Power Within, the best Pyromancy and the best spell in the game, requires zero investment. So, using Pyromancy as a weapon, it has a significant cost associated with it. So, basically, that's why I put it here in the A tier. It is very strong. It deals exclusively fire damage, and dealing pure of a single damage type is usually better, but not for the reason that people think. I want to talk about split damage a little bit in this video too, so I'm kind of going all over the place. But yes, I would rank this as like an A tier option, and I would say that Pyromancy is massively overrated by the community at large. It is very good, but it's not broken. And it's not overpowered. It's not something that's like just going to trivialize the game for you. And also, and if you're going to use it properly, it's going to require you to already know like where to get the spells and everything. So it's going to require a lot of game knowledge to utilize. The attacks don't use stamina, which is really convenient if you need to block or roll, but like managing stamina is literally the name of the game, so it's not that big of a deal. It's actually not as significant of an upside as you might think, which is the same for how it quote-unquote doesn't cost stats. Both of the upsides of this weapon choice indicate that they would be broken, but in practice actually aren't. So that's my take on Pyromancy. Also, quite a few enemies are significantly resistant and or immune to Pyromancy, so like if you're just using Pyromancy, you can have a hard time. Plus you have limited spell casts. There's a lot of issues with this. So yes, the damage is crazy if you use like Crown of Dusk and stuff like that, but if you just utilize Pyromancy as your primary weapon, you're going to find some definite challenges there. I am going to do this. So let's talk about Sorcery real quick. Sorcery is interesting because I'm actually going to put it in D tier. So this is going to blow people's minds. Sorcery is one of the most overrated things in this game, period. Its utility is very high at low stat investments. So you can get things like Cast Light, Hidden Body, Great Magic Weapon with the Ulasil Catalyst. Like, that shit is really good. That's really good shit. But as soon as you start going up to like 40, 50 intelligence, 23 attunement, stuff like that, heavy investment, you're also spending loads of souls on spells as well, because you have to buy a whole shitload. to even get your catalyst, you have to purchase all of Logan's spells, which is a massive souls investment. If you're considering you're not doing grinding, because grinding would obviously trivialize the game and make the game easier, so we can't consider grinding as part of it, like farming souls. You have to consider what it costs you in terms of spending all your souls, all your level ups on these spells and everything like that. So you end up with an issue where you have these slow spells that have bad tracking, stuff like Soul Spear. Homing Soul Mass is really good, but it's also really jank and sometimes just doesn't work properly. These are slow cast time moves. They're not that good. Basically, Dark Bead is an exception. It's like a broken spell. It's genuinely insane, but that's all the way in the end of the DLC. And by the time you've gotten that, you've already basically beaten the game. So it's like a sorcery build is only going to take off super late. It's going to cost massive stat investment. You're going to be slow as heck, and your attacks are going to miss a huge amount of the time. When I'm fighting Artorias with a spell build, you have to specifically strafe to the left while casting Soul Spear while Artorias is in ending lag in order to actually hit him with a Soul Spear. Because it's that bad, the tracking. It's just so bad. And the damage isn't even that good either, with stuff like Soul Spear, Homing Crystal Soul Mass, things like that. Considering how much you invest into the build, it's so much investment for so little payoff. So I would personally put Magic as being like, I would say very bad and extremely overrated in terms of playstyles in this game. If you actually want to do like sorceries only, I would actually consider it a challenge run. I would not consider it to be like an easy way to play the game, because you require massive amounts of game knowledge to use this. It's extremely slow. You can easily miss, and you basically have to run past all of the regular enemies in the game because you don't have any reliable way of dealing with them. You don't have critical hits, you don't have backstabs, you don't have parries. You can parry someone and then blast them with Soul Spear, which certainly works, but it's so much effort and it's so much worse than just using a weapon. There's so much convenience with just using a weapon. So I certainly rate this as extremely poor. And yes, Dark Bead is broken, but that's super end game, and it's going to be broken for literally, you're going to kill Gwyn with Dark Bead, I guess, because you've already killed probably every other boss in the game by the time you've gotten Dark Bead, which certainly is a broken spell. But sorcery overall is one of the most overrated things in Dark Souls. All right, so we're going to get on to some of the Ultra Greatswords. So I'm going to put the Black Knight Ultra Greatsword in F tier. This weapon's extremely heavy. It can't be buffed. It has oddly high stat requirements in dexterity, with 18 dex required to use all the Black Knight weapons. And its damage output is actually less than virtually every other Ultra Greatsword. So it's commonly used because of the fact that it upgrades with Twinkling Titanite. This weapon is commonly used because it's upgraded with Twinkling Titanite, which is often easier to upgrade a weapon with, and it starts with very high base damage. So early, this could be considered good, but it's extremely slow, has not as good range as other greatswords, and yeah, so it's kind of just a bad weapon that gets a lot of like bonus consideration for the fact that it is acquired early. And it looks cool as hell. Like, let's be honest. It looks very cool. So yeah, this weapon just underperforms compared to every other Ultra Greatsword. So I'm putting it in here and in this video to kind of talk about overrated weapons. And this is an example of an overrated weapon. It's often used and people think it's super good, but yeah, it's used in speedruns because they can do a glitch where they change the moveset of things, but that is definitely not the way the game is meant to be played, so we're not considering that as part of this. I'm not a speedrunner, I just play PvE. Alright, so the Zweihander, also going to be another massively overrated weapon. I am going to put it in C tier though, because despite the fact that the weapon is overrated, it is still very good. So this is the kind of like measured and nuanced take that I want to see more of in Dark Souls discussions in general, which is that just because a weapon is overrated doesn't mean it's bad, and just because a weapon is underrated doesn't mean it's broken. And the Zweihander is a great example of that. This weapon early, you can use the heavy attack and two-hand it to pancake enemies. There are a few problems with this weapon. And one of the first problems I want to talk about with weapons is quality weapons, which is weapons that scale with both strength and dexterity. And the Zweihander is a quality weapon. It doesn't scale exactly evenly between the two stats. I believe it favors strength slightly, but it's only going to do good damage for its attack speed and its weight when you have at least like very high strength and dexterity. We're talking about having like 40 and 40 in both. And that kind of stat investment on your first new game playthrough is not going to happen. So this weapon's going to be doing less damage than you would expect compared to other ultra greatswords. It's available early, which is super handy, and it can pancake enemies, which can really make your life easier, but it has those flaws. So the next thing about it is, as a weapon that has high base damage and low requirements, you would think that the thing to do with it would be to give it an elemental infusion. Something like making this weapon lightning or chaos upgrade. But the problem with that is then you're dealing with split damage, and you actually end up dealing even less damage than other options that do the same thing better. So that's where I want to talk about the Demon's Great Machete. And I'm going to put this guy above Pyromancy as one of the super underrated weapons. I'm going to put it in B, actually. Let's put it here. This weapon completely outclasses the Zweihander because it's the same moveset with more range. You literally only need 27 strength, and that's it. And this weapon will output massively more damage than the Zweihander ever could, no matter what the infusion is. If you just use this weapon with 27 strength two-handed, it's exactly the stats to wield it, and its performance is exceptional. The damage that it deals is absolutely massive. It deals it in those wide arcing swings that we all love. This one does have an overhead slam heavy attack, super good weapon, absolutely exceptional, and the problems with the Zweihander go away with this one. But the thing about it is, people think that this weapon is bad and the Zweihander is good. And I don't comprehend that, because if you're going to use an elemental infusion, the reason you're doing that is to optimize for high damage with low stat investment. But an even better way to optimize for high damage with low stat investment is to just get 27 strength and two-hand your weapon. You're getting the full 40 strength scaling out of your strength weapon, and you're getting pure physical damage, and you're getting it at extremely low stat cost. So this is where something like the Man-Serpent Greatsword comes in. Is the Man-Serpent Greatsword is basically the ultimate king of this concept, which is you want to spend low stats on your scaling so that you can maximize your endurance at 40 and go with vitality to 50. Because then you have tons of health, you have loads of stamina, and you have so much damage. Just to put it into perspective, the Man-Serpent Greatsword with 27 strength two-handed actually does more damage. It has higher attack rating than the Black Knight Halberd. Okay? The Black Knight Halberd. This thing that everyone says is like the best weapon in the game. So seriously, the most underrated weapon in the entire game is the Man-Serpent Greatsword, unquestionably. It is a little bit slower and has a little bit less range than something like the Black Knight Halberd, which is why the Black Knight Halberd, despite being massively overrated, is still an exceptionally good weapon. But I'm going to drop it down to A tier for a few reasons. The Black Knight Halberd gets outclassed in terms of damage, weight, and every other metric by the Gargoyle's Halberd on a quality build. So this is super interesting because I just mentioned how quality investment is too much stats, which is where the Gargoyle's Halberd benefits a lot from elemental infusion. So then the Gargoyle's Halberd is significantly worse than something like the Black Knight Halberd because you require an elemental infusion to make this thing optimal damage for stat investment, or you go quality scaling, but quality scaling is too much stat investment. It's just too much. You can't afford to go 40 strength, 40 dex, or 27 strength and 40 dexterity and be level 70 to 80 and tell me that that's like an optimal build. It's just not. Like, quality scaling is just like not worth it in this game, in my opinion, in PvE. In PvP, it's different because everyone's level 125. You have more stats than you could possibly need. So in PvE, stats are a more significant cost, and so stat efficiency is more important. And that is why something like an Elemental Infusion sucks, because you're doing split damage, which sucks against the DLC, and you're also really looking for those weapons that do high damage for low stat investment, and you're going to find that in pure physical attack rating from strength weapons. So Black Knight Halberd is really, 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 really good. It has some flaws. One is that it can't be buffed. That's a very small flaw. With a halberd, you're not really looking to buff those. That's because they don't attack that fast. So slapping a buff onto a weapon like the Black Knight Halberd, it's not really relevant. But if you want the same moveset for potentially more damage, you would look at something like the Scythe. And I think the Scythe is really significantly underrated. On a dexterity build, when you compare it to the Great Scythe, it actually does more damage on a dexterity build than the Great Scythe. It has the same moveset as the Gargoyle's Halberd. It does slashing damage, which is great in Dark Souls 1. It can be buffed, and it only weighs 6. So this is, like, if we're looking at how underrated weapons are, I would probably put the Scythe in A tier. It's an extremely underrated weapon. You can also acquire it right at the start of the game, like, really easily, because Sen's Gateskip is the easiest thing to do in the world. I might make a video on it later, but anyway, Sen's Gateskip, super easy to do. You can just go ahead and grab this, like, right away. And it has low stat requirements, excellent damage, high base damage, excellent scaling with dexterity, and it can work on a quality build if you go into New Game Plus. So this just straight up, to me, outclasses the Great Scythe, because it does more damage for less stat investment with an extremely good moveset as well. Now, in terms of being overrated, the Great Scythe is the king of being overrated, because this is often considered the best weapon in the game. Basically, everyone says it's the best weapon in the game. I honestly would put it in B tier. I think the Great Scythe is just, like, its moveset is literally perfect. Like, it has the perfect moveset except for being just a tad slow. It has overhead swings and wide horizontal slashes. And when you're talking about hit detection, that is the best possible moveset that you could ever have, is exactly that. Overhead swings, you can do stuff like tail cuts, you can cut Kalameet's tail, you can cut Sif's tail, you can cut the Gaping Dragon's tail, you can cut all the tails off with that move. You have exceptionally high range, you have quick-ish attack speed. This weapon has bleed, which is just a bonus. You know, you don't need to consider bleed as being this super important thing, because it's just a bonus. It makes bosses that are already quite easy much easier. So it's not that good, like bleed in this game. It's not like it makes extremely difficult bosses easy. It makes easy bosses easy. But yes, the Great Scythe is massively overrated because it's widely considered to be the best weapon in the game. But even in its own weapon class, it actually has the lowest damage on almost any kind of build compared to any other weapon in its own category. So if you look at the other halberds, like the Scythe just straight up outdamages it. The Black Knight Halberd massively outdamages it. Other weapons, like the katanas, get really close to this much attack rating, but they have a faster moveset. So the Great Scythe has flaws, and it's not a shoo-in for being just the best weapon in the game. It seriously isn't. So it's one of the most overrated weapons in the game. But its moveset is extremely good. It's downright immaculate. That heavy attack sweep is so fast and so convenient to have when you're dealing with groups. Definitely a boss killer move there. So I would put it in A tier in terms of how good it actually is. But it's certainly very overrated as well. I actually think, while the Great Scythe is a contender for being one of the best weapons in Dark Souls, it is not a shoo-in for the number one spot. And I personally wouldn't even consider it top 3. This weapon right here, the Great Scythe. So the main reason is it's a little slow. This weapon, all of its attacks have a little bit of startup, and it can be very annoying when you don't have those opportunities. And it really necessitates having a shield with good deflection. And of course, shields are super important in this game, but if you want to two-hand your weapon and do stat efficiency, then this weapon isn't the one. So, extremely good weapon, one of the best weapons. But let's do some reorganizing here. Yeah, this looks better. Here we go. Let's make it make sense. Okay, yes. I would organize things like this. So current top 3 is like Manserper Greatsword, so good. I'm gonna move the Black Knight Halberd up and put the Great Scythe in A tier. I think Great Scythe belongs in A tier as a weapon in terms of actual quality. So there's my thoughts on the Great Scythe. It's just a tad slow. Biggest problem with the weapon. Balder Sidesword. The Balder Sidesword is the best straight sword in the game, hands down. But it has a problem, which is everybody says it has the best moveset in the game, and it does have horizontal swings and then thrusting attacks. But horizontal swings plus thrusting attacks does not equal the best moveset in the game. The best moveset in the game is actually horizontal swings and overhead swings, because you do want to be able to hit high up and far forward, and an overhead swing is the weapon moveset to do that. And the Balder Sidesword does not actually have that. So it doesn't have the best moveset in the game, in my opinion. Poking attacks are like good in Dark Souls 1, but they're not like ridiculous. And if you're doing an exclusive poking attack build, there's actually better weapons to do this with, such as the Uchigatana. Now let's not get these mixed up. One of these is the Ayato and the other is the Uchi. I think the Uchi has a lighter color overall. I think this is the Uchi right here. So let's talk about the Uchigatana and the Iato. I want to talk about the Iato as well because holy shit, this is the most annoying little difference here. Really pisses me off, the whole Iato versus Uchigatana discussion. Because I hear all the time people tell me that the Iato has the better heavy attack. And I have never heard anything that could be more wrong. Like, it is the dumbest statement to say that the Uchigatana, which, by the way, has basically the same moveset as the Balder Sidesword, which is often considered to have the best moveset of all weapons in the game, it has that moveset, and yet people are saying that the Iato, which gives you a slashing heavy attack, is somehow better. It is not better to have a slashing heavy attack on a weapon that's light attack is already a slashing attack. Plus, it has less attack rating. Plus, it's harder to obtain. It's like the Iato just doesn't compare with the Uchi. The Uchi is clearly better, which makes the Iato massively overrated and the Uchigatana quite underrated. And it's very telling because a lot of people don't even consider the Uchigatana to be the best weapon in the game. I personally do think it is the best weapon in the game. But it is the most commonly used weapon in PvP. Now, I'm not talking about PvP in this video, but that gives you an idea of how much people want to use it. Because in theory, the amount that people use a weapon would indicate its success rate in a competitive environment. And that appears to be the case. But anyway, Uchigatana has some of the fastest light attacks in the game. It has an exceptionally long range lunging thrust attack that deals very high attack damage. It inflicts bleed. It can be buffed. It doesn't weigh that much. It doesn't ping off of enemy shields. It synergizes with spell builds. It synergizes with pure physical builds. You can cast great magic weapon on it with the Ulasil Ivory Catalyst and benefits so much. It benefits so much from slapping on gold pine resin. The weapon does some of the highest DPS. It's super reliable. It's exceptional with a shield. You can use it two-handed, one-handed, however you like, and it gets a solid, amazing, fast moveset with good damage. And it's going to outclass something like the Great Scythe because of the fact that it benefits more from buffs by being so much faster. The Uchi is a lot faster than the Great Scythe, and it has a little bit less range and a little bit less damage. But if we're considering, like so many people are saying, the Great Scythe is the best weapon, blah, 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 and they're so wrong, then you look at the Uchigatana and it's like, it's literally better in almost every way, and what it sacrifices is almost nothing. It's a tiny little bit of attack rating that you're sacrificing. Like, the Great Scythe gets around 454 or something like that, and the Uchigatana gets 420 AR with 40 dex with both of these weapons and 14 strength. So, tiny bit of damage lost, theoretically, but you gain it all back from when you slap on buffs onto your weapon. This thing just slaps like nobody's business, and it also is powerful without buffs as well. So it's a reliable weapon that has so much versatility to it. All right, I'm going to try to bang out the rest of these real quick because I've been yapping for literally half an hour. But Mace and Reinforced Club. I want to talk about these two together. Often the Reinforced Club is considered to be the best hammer in the game. It is worse than the Mace. Bleed is an optional and small benefit that the Reinforced Club has over the Mace, but the Mace has higher attack rating, and both can be obtained super early, super easily. You could start as a cleric to start with the Mace, but that's not optimal. You're better off starting it as a bandit, running into the catacombs, and just grabbing it. It's so easy to get. But the biggest thing is, with the attack speed of the Reinforced Club, I have never, ever, once in all of my playthroughs, and I've played with all of these weapons like crazy, by the way, I have never triggered bleed with the Reinforced Club. It has never happened, because the weapon is too slow to possibly ever trigger bleed. And that's in the niche circumstance that you're fighting an enemy that can actually be hit by bleed. There's just no point in using this weapon over one like the Mace, which has just a tiny smidge more attack rating. It is a very small difference, these two weapons. They're really, really similar, but the Mace has a little bit more range and a little bit more attack rating, and I would take that any day over the bleed. All right, this one's weird. It's kind of overrated and underrated, the Blacksmith Giant Hammer. Unfortunately, it deals split elemental damage. So I want to talk a little bit about how split damage works. People say a lot of the time that the reason why split damage causes you to deal less damage is because you're factoring in two defense types. And that's not exactly true. If anyone's played the game Dragon's Dogma, the original Dragon's Dogma, not Dragon's Dogma 2, but the original Dragon's Dogma, you might understand the concept of breaking defenses. So when games have flat defense numbers, you need to exceed that number in order to deal decent damage. So when you split your damage up, each of those split damage numbers needs to exceed the defense value of the target you're hitting in order to do enough damage to deal significant damage. You can see this in Dragon's Dogma, and it's the same numbers system, which is why I'm talking about like flat damage negation, because it's not percentage based. Enemies don't have percent resistances to your attacks, and neither do you from theirs. You have flat numbers. And as long as an attack exceeds your defense value, you're going to deal some decent damage. But if it doesn't exceed the defense value, then you're going to deal significantly less damage. So the whole thing you want is, if a weapon has a little bit of physical damage and a boatload of magic damage, you're actually not going to lose that much damage from having that physical damage. It's not like having physical damage added on lowers your damage. It will always add to it. But it might get negated by their defense values. So that's the nerdy explanation of that little aspect of things about why split damage works the way it does. It's better to think of it as I need to break enemy defenses by dealing a high damage number in one of the damage numbers on my weapon screen. So if this deals like 133, like physical strike and lightning damage, then it's basically doing like dagger levels of damage from each of its damage types, and that is why you end up with negative things. Anyway, basically, it's just slightly worse than the Reinforced Club or the Mace, because yes, this is really good on level 1 runs, which is, that's a challenge run, so we're not talking about that today. But the thing about these weapons is whenever you have an elemental weapon and you're trying to get lots of damage from low stat investment, that is always going to be outclassed by a strength scaling weapon. A strength scaling weapon is going to deal pure physical damage, which means that damage number is going to be higher, which means it's going to break defenses better, and it's only going to require 27 strength to maximize your strength scaling damage, and strength weapons tend to deal lots of damage. So you're never going to want to go for an elemental upgrade path when you have access to the alternative of a pure physical weapon that scales with strength. Because strength is just the most efficient stat investment for damage gained that you can get. Now, there's reasons why the Uchi is so high up, is because dexterity, getting dex to 40 isn't that much more difficult than getting strength to 27, and you get the benefits of way faster attack speed, which benefits more from buffs, and buffs are extremely powerful in Dark Souls 1. All right, so my prize for the most overrated weapon in Dark Souls is the Claymore. The Claymore is the most overrated weapon. I would put it in S tier at the very top if this was like an overrated scaling, but I'm basically just putting how good the weapons are. I would say the Claymore is probably like at the bottom of B tier. Yeah, it's at the bottom of B tier. It requires, if you want the full extent of this weapon's moveset, which is like those slashing swings and then the amazing thrust attack that this weapon does have, the moveset's immaculate. I'm not taking that away from the Claymore. But the stat investment is ridiculous for a weapon that you're playing in New Game. Without going into New Game Plus, you're just playing PvE, you're picking up this thing on the bridge, and you're going to use it. You would need 40 strength and 40 dexterity to maximize the damage on the Claymore. And it would do around 4 more attack rating than the Man-Serpent Greatsword, which requires only strength. So whether you're one-handing or not, the Man-Serpent Greatsword is going to completely outdamage the Claymore in terms of stat investment for damage dealt. So if you're looking for a Greatsword to use, the Claymore should not even be in the consideration for New Game when you're playing your first playthrough. You should be doing the Man-Serpent Greatsword instead, because it actually has easier to meet requirements because it doesn't require dexterity at all, and it also outputs more damage for less stat investment. And even if you went ahead and went with 40 strength and 40 dexterity, the Claymore is only going to deal the tiniest little sliver more damage, and that is just simply not worth it for how much levels you have to put into it. All right, so I'm going to bring up these weapons. These weapons are all kind of lumped together: the Demon's Great Axe, the Black Knight Great Axe, and the Great Club. Reason being, the Great Club is often considered to be like the highest single hit damaging weapon in the game. And it is really good, especially two-handed, but it's extremely slow. Like, this thing is slow. And the Demon's Great Axe, actually, shockingly fast. This weapon has the highest damage number in the game. It gets outclassed in terms of actual damage dealt by the Great Club because the Great Club deals strike damage, which is often better as a damage type. But the numbers are extremely high on this weapon, and if you two-hand this weapon, it isn't that much more investment than other strength weapon options. And the biggest thing with the Demon Great Axe is its recovery frames after you land a hit are rather low. So what you end up with is a massively high damage single hit weapon that when the boss gives you an opportunity, you can take that opportunity, deal massive damage, and have time to roll afterwards to respond to the boss's follow-up attack. So if you're considering like DPS, you're not thinking about this game properly. What you need to be thinking about is DPO. And DPO stands for damage per opportunity. So what you want when you're fighting bosses in this game is to do the most damage you can in each opportunity that the boss gives you to attack. So the Demon's Great Axe is actually going to be one of the best weapons at doing that, and I would put it as one of the S tier weapons in this game. And that's something that a lot of these three weapons here all have in common. The Uchi can basically attack with impunity and dodge immediately after attacking, which is what makes it so insane, especially with buffs and all that stuff. But these weapons, all of them, the Black Knight Halberd, the Man-Serpent Greatsword, and the Demon's Great Axe, all have the ability to do extremely high damage per opportunity. And if we're talking about damage per opportunity, Black Knight Great Axe does extremely well two-handed. It's very fast, surprisingly, when two-handed, and it does do very high damage, although it's somewhat misleading because the motion values of this weapon were nerfed in a patch ages ago, many years ago. And so this weapon's a little bit worse than it actually leads on to be, but it is still extremely good when two-handed. So if you don't mind two-handing your weapon, this is extremely good. This is the most underrated weapon that I see. Usually I see the Murakumo rated as like around a mid-tier weapon. I would rank it. It was previously my favorite weapon. In fact, it is my favorite weapon. I think it's the second best weapon in the game. When it comes to damage per opportunity, literally nothing can beat the Murakumo. It is so insanely high damaging. As soon as the boss gives you a chance, you can get 1, 2, or 3 light attacks in with this thing two-handed, and it genuinely deletes bosses so fast. You just want enough strength to two-hand this weapon, and then you want to take your dex to 40, and you'll get extremely high damage out of this weapon. The only flaw that this weapon does have, in my opinion, is for the stat investment that you do, you are going to have to sacrifice a little bit of vitality in order to make your build work with being like level like 80 on average. So it synergizes with player skill for sure. But yeah, it's genuinely one of the most insane weapons. It's one of my favorite weapons. In fact, it is my favorite weapon, the Murakumo, and I would rank it as the number 2 weapon in the game. It has wide horizontal sweeping attacks. It has massive damage. It has an incredible moveset. It has excellent stagger. Like, I don't think there's anything in this game that stagger locks enemies and bosses like the Murakumo does. That thing will just stun lock things, and it's so good. So we love the Murakumo around here. Quelax Fury Sword, I'm going to put it alongside these elemental guys. It's the same thing as before. The Quelax Fury Sword, being a curved sword, it kind of suffers from being a multi-damage type weapon because it does fire and slash. Mainly because its weapon type is a curved sword, which has on average lower damage numbers. And that means that the damage numbers of fire and physical that's split is going to be like very low, and it's not going to break defenses. So like early game, or if you're running like a vitality build or whatever, you could use this. But again, vitality builds are always better if you just run 27 strength and call it a strength build and get more damage for less stat investment while having a pure physical damage type. You're better off if you're looking to make a build that focuses on vitality and endurance and having like super bulky stats. You're way better off just using the Mans Serpent Greatsword. In fact, the Mans Serpent Greatsword, in my opinion, if you're looking at like vitality builds, period, this is the best weapon for a vitality build, the Mans Serpent Greatsword. You get excellent damage for just 27 strength, which you can get like almost out the gate from Bandit class. You start as Bandit class, you have to level, I think, 11 times, literally 11 levels, and your scaling is maxed out. Crazy. And it does more damage per hit than the Black Knight Halberd. Like, come on. So, you know, when it comes to like vitality builds and elemental stuff, it's always going to be outclassed by those physical options. And quality weapons are going to be outclassed by their single stat investment, like strength or dexterity weapons, because of the stat investment. That's what this is all about, is stat investment. And the last thing I want to talk about is the best curved sword in the game, the Falchion, and why I think that the Painting Guardian sword is like, not that good. Okay, so the main difference we're talking about here is just range. And let's talk about why curved swords are good. Curved swords are good because they benefit an insane amount from buffs. Weapon buffs are really, really good. They add a flat amount of damage. You can get 180 magic damage from Great Magic Weapon if you cast it using the Ulasil Ivory Catalyst, which you get from killing the Hydra and then buying it off of Dusk of Ulasil. That is a super cheap, low stat investment way of getting 180 magic damage added to any weapon in the game. Obviously, I think the Uchigatana is better for this because the Uchigatana has its own, like, the weapon is really good just on its own, and then it benefits from Great Magic Weapon extremely well. But the curved swords, they are good on their own, but they're not insane on their own like the Uchi is. But then they get to be quite insane with weapon buffs, and they do output some of the highest DPS in the game. But again, something I want to point out is the most important thing is damage per opportunity, not damage per second. So that's where the curved swords kind of fall off, because your buff time interrupts your damage per opportunity unless you're able to basically one-shot the boss. And I talked about this in my rings video. If you are able to use power within and buffs and no hit a boss with almost 0 vitality, then how good weapons are does not matter. It's not relevant anymore. A weapon is good in correlation with how much easier it makes the game. That is literally how you define what a weapon is when it comes to whether it's good or not. And the way that you get weapons to make the game easier for you is to perform well with low stat investment so that you can make the game easier by leveling vitality and endurance. So, this is the list right now. I'm going to do a little bit of organizing because I want to sort out this kind of, especially these top tiers. I'm not going to worry too much about these lower tiers and mid-tier stuff, but when it comes to the best weapons in the game, I just quickly want to organize it so it's very clear my opinions on this. Uchigatana is the best weapon in the game, hands down, super fast, light attack weapon, scales with dex, super easy to get, super easy to level up, super easy to upgrade. It has the best moveset in the entire game. It completely outclasses the Baldur Sidesword because it just has the same moveset with better damage and better range. So there's literally no reason to use the Baldur Sidesword. I'm so sorry. Baller swag is real. This weapon is fantastic. Don't let me fault you for using it. You know, if you find the Baldur Sidesword to be the most fun or the best weapon, all the power to you. You go for it. But I'm just talking about what makes weapons the actual best in the game, and so I have to mention the fact that the Uchigatana is just an upgrade over the Baldur Sidesword because it does significantly more attack rating for the same moveset, pretty much. Now, the Baldur Sidesword has slightly wider horizontal swings, but it's not really a big deal. The Uchi can definitely hold its own when it comes to sweeping attacks as well. And thrusting attacks. It has the heavy thrusting attack, which is way better than the Iato's stupid slashing attack that everybody rates so highly, and the Iato has lower attack rating and is harder to obtain. Ugh, pisses me off so much how much people overrate the Iato and say it's better than the Uchi. I think people are just trying to be different. They're trying to be like, oh, I'm so clever and I think of interesting things because I think the Uchi's bad. And it's like, you're just literally like baiting people. You know what I mean? Oh my god. Anyway, sorry. Uchigatana is the best thing. Murakumo, I can't honestly rate the Murakumo as being the second best weapon in the game. I do think it's the Black Knight Halberd. Yeah, let's do it like this. I would say it's like Uchigatana number 1, number 2 is Black Knight Halberd, number 3 is the Man Serpent Greatsword, super underrated weapon. Then there's the Murakumo, number 4. Then we have, yes, the Falchion's extremely good. I would do it like this. Let's get the Great Scythe up here in S tier where it belongs. Because, like I said, just because the Great Scythe is the most overrated weapon in the game, it doesn't mean that it isn't an exceptional weapon. It absolutely is. And this is starting to look pretty damn good, if you ask me, this list right here. All right, I'm liking this. We got Uchi, Black Knight Halberd, Man Serpent Greatsword, Murakumo, Great Scythe, Falchion. Then in A tier, you have the Demon's Great Axe, mainly because it recovers faster from rolling, like it recovers faster from its attacks if you hit, and allows you to roll earlier than something like the Great Club, which gives you more damage per opportunity because more of your opportunities are actually safe opportunities to attack with the Demon's Great Axe. Same thing goes for the Black Knight Great Axe, extremely high attack speed for very high attack damage. Unfortunately, can't be buffed, but who cares? It's such a slow weapon, you're not really going to be buffing it anyway. But anyway, yeah. There. Okay, I think this is pretty good. I think I'm happy with this. Main thing I wanted to do was talk about what makes a weapon good and talk about what makes a weapon overrated. And I hope that some of my words here were insightful and useful to people when you're looking at Dark Souls 1 weapons. This is my current look at, especially like I'm not too particular about the ordering of like the B, C, D, and F tier. I'm not too worried about it. But when it comes to the S and A tier, I think this is pretty much my list here. I'm just going to get the Ayato completely out of here. Just go away. You're just completely outclassed by the Uchigatana. I kind of hate this weapon. Let's get the Scythe brought up. Yes, it's extremely underrated. Yeah, right here. Yes. Okay, yes, we like this. I think this is perfect. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, all right. I could see this. This is like your top 10 weapons. Anyway, main thing I wanted to do was dispel a lot of the craziness that people say. And I don't really have like a million hours of footage, and nor do I have editing skills to actually go through and make one of these like more entertainment-based videos. So what you can do is you can kind of look at my video as a better source of accurate information, but obviously my video is worse at giving entertainment than these other big YouTubers who are talking about, Dark Souls 1 weapons and ranking them and stuff. Their videos are better edited, they're more entertaining, they are more charismatic and all that good stuff. I'm just an autistic guy who's super interested in Dark Souls 1, and these are my opinions on the best weapons in Dark Souls 1. This would be my current top 10. It is subject to change over time as I make more discoveries and learn more about the way the game works. Which is always happening. I'm always learning when it comes to this game. And my playstyle has evolved too. I used to be super reliant on shields, but now I basically two-hand every weapon I play with, which is another reason why the Great Scythe is slightly worse, just a smidge worse than people rate it as, because the two-handed light attack is a little bit slower, but yeah. I think I've yapped for the better part of an hour at this point, so I think it's about time to close off the video. I really appreciate you listening to me ramble about what the best weapons are in Dark Souls 1. I feel very strongly about this, obviously. I'm not going to edit this video at all. I'm literally just going to post it because I can't stand editing, and I'm just here to kind of put out what I believe is accurate information on what the best weapons are in the game. If you don't play with the best weapons in the game, that's valid and awesome. Just have fun, man. Just have fun and chill and enjoy your favorite weapons. But optimizing is fun to me, and so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just having fun the way that I have fun. So don't let the way I have fun ruin your fun. If you think that sorcery is your favorite thing to do in the game, then do sorcery, man. Enjoy it. But this is what I think is optimal. And it's just fun for me to think about that kind of thing, because that's how I like to enjoy games. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and bye.